yet done an update. I'm thinking through how to write chapter 1 of my dissertation, so I'm going to just do a think aloud because my director told me to use chapter 1 to write the story of my dissertation. And by that he meant, what's the purpose, what's the background, what's the important information that people need to know. And I'm thinking a lot about why I'm even doing this study in the first place, and especially after analyzing my pre-study survey data, it's kind of feeling like I'm not sure what that reason is. Initially, I felt like, bringing writing centers and technical communication together is beneficial because there's not a lot out there, and that doesn't necessarily always mean that a combination needs to happen. Peanut butter and chocolate need to be together, and mint and chocolate need to be together, and basil and tomato need to be together. But then there's sometimes things that you just don't think should go together, like basil and strawberry. It just doesn't sound very appealing at first. And then when you try it, you find out that actually it is pretty tasty and it makes a really delicious Bellini. So I'm kind of thinking about how to frame that, because the big thing that I'm coming up against is that, one, I don't think that students value the course overall. I mean, I think they say that they value the course, but overall, from the statistical data, we know that students pass this class by and large. They don't have a lot of difficulty passing the class. So that's a good thing. And to a lot of minds, that might mean that creating a service for those students is just not necessary, just not reasonable, not a good use of resources. And so I'm also looking at the likelihood that students said they would use online tutoring from my survey data, and the likelihood is very low. At the same time, the likelihood that they would use a course-specific website, specifically a website that I think a lot of them would like to have examples of the kinds of documents they should be producing, hosted on, and other specific information about the course. They are saying that they would find that very helpful, or that they would be likely to use it. They also indicated that how-to videos would be really likely something to use. So I'm thinking of shifting more toward, a traditional OWL type model, and by that I mean just like the Purdue OWL, which people know pretty well, but having more like a technical writing OWL. So a place where students can go and find, like I said before, examples of how to do things and examples of what technical writing and technical design looks like, and then also some how-to videos. So I think the lab will offer online tutoring as well, but I'm guessing that will not be our largest focus. I've thought about whether or not to offer asynchronous tutoring. I didn't ask students if they would be interested in asynchronous tutoring. Maybe that's a mistake. I'm just going by what, the literature out there says, but it's also very interesting that this article that came out recently in Writing Center Journal makes the argument that asynchronous online tutoring has been largely overlooked in the literature, and that the prevailing attitude is that asynchronous is not a very good form of online tutoring because it does not simulate face-to-face learning, face-to-face tutoring. So the person basically argues that asynchronous tutoring is still valuable and that it's something that has been cast off. And I can't remember if this is part of the argument in the article or not, but to my mind, that makes a lot of sense because we can't always simulate face-to-face in an online environment. That's just not always a relevant or a productive thing to do. And one thing that a lot of literature says in our field about teaching writing online is that we need to reimagine ways that that those platforms can act and that people can interact. So things like Google Docs, offers a new way for people to interact with writing. I do all of my feedback with my students in Google Docs because, one, they get to see the feedback very, very quickly. Neither one of us has to upload or download any documents. They can, if I make suggestions in their document, they can accept them. And there's an action behind that. They have to actually click the accept button. Now, I guess they could just go through the document and click accept on everything. But I try to, number one, make it so that I'm not making suggestions about every single little thing that is wrong or could be corrected with the paper, and also that I'm offering an explanation about why I'm making that particular suggestion. So, I don't know. There's different ways that online learning can happen, and one of the interesting things that I'm finding in response to the question about whether or not students prefer online or face-to-face learning is that they take courses online or face-to-face for different reasons, and they seem to expect different things from online courses. So a lot of them seem to be saying that I'm taking an online course because it's easier, this class in particular, multiple people said this class in particular is suited to an online environment, and I'm very curious as to why they think that is. Because I think that can tell us something about what we should be doing with that course and how students are learning in that course, or how they should be learning, or how we can be deepening their learning, because they seem to think, some of them, that an online course, if it's just a matter of reading a textbook and producing documents, doing some writing, then there's really no need to have the course face-to-face. And that's really interesting to me. So why do they think that, and what can we do to deepen their learning in a way that makes the course become more meaningful and more applicable to them? I mean, there were multiple people in different places in the survey that took the opportunity to say that they did not find the course valuable for various reasons, and that's fine, and they're certainly not the majority. They are, the people that made these comments, I think they did it because the survey didn't ask them what they thought about the course overall, I guess, or something like that. I mean, I asked the question, how valuable do you think this course is for teaching you things that you can learn in the workplace. And, people could answer highly valuable or highly unvaluable. So they had a whole range, but yet some people still felt like it was important to let me know how unvaluable the course was in several places. One person even went so far as to write the exact same short answer to 2 different questions. They were similar questions, but one asked about activities for the course and one asked about assignments for the course. And that student felt the need to mention in both questions that they did not find the course valuable and that they had learned everything that they needed to know from working for multiple semesters before taking the course. So I think that that's interesting because, if a student has prior experience in technical writing before taking the course, then, maybe they should be able to do some kind of assessment, or, I think there's some universities that take work experience and let students test out of certain classes, or they even get credit for certain things. So that might be something interesting for students to do. But anyway, it's just kind of hard to think about why I'm doing this dissertation when I'm getting the results that I am from the survey. When I had maybe one student on the survey who said that they thought that having the course be more specific to their discipline would be more effective. So that was one of the reasons that I originally thought about doing this course this study, because, academic writing is not the same as technical writing. And so discipline-specific writing centers are pretty interesting to me for that reason. And then also, one of the reasons that I think it's valuable to bring technical writing and writing centers together is that they both value collaboration really highly. And one of the things that came out of the survey was that students find collaboration highly valuable, and they also find it to be one of the most difficult parts of the course. So I think that was, besides proposals, that was rated the second highest most difficult thing to do in the class. So it's interesting because I think that, the textbook highlights in particular that collaboration is an inherent part of technical writing. There's an entire chapter about writing collaboratively, and it's been my experience in the workplace that a lot of documents are written collaboratively. Of course, I've worked in higher education and, and some other environments too, but I don't know. I haven't worked in a technical job, so I'm not an engineer. I'm not in industry, so I'd be curious to know how true that is for other disciplines besides my own, because we definitely, in my discipline, have a tendency to value the single authored monograph, and that's, worth a lot of brownie points or tenure track points, whatever you want to call it. So anyway, I think it's more useful to think about how to scaffold students with collaboration, because that's something that is basically a tech comm skill. And obviously that's inherent to technical industries in general. If you're an engineer, you don't build something by yourself. If you do research and design, you don't do that by yourself. You do that with a team. That would be extremely difficult to do by yourself. So yeah, it's just thinking about the ways in which, especially with an online class, that these activities can be scaffolded in an effective way. And maybe students aren't necessarily thinking about the fact that they can learn something about collaboration. It's not necessarily about the online tutoring per se. It's more about the ability to learn that skill, how to go into the workplace and be a good collaborator and say, you know, I know how to use Google Docs. I know how to use track changes. I know how to use commenting features. I know how to set up synchronous webcam videos, or excuse me, you know, video meetings so that I can collaborate with my teammates. And that's something that, you know, they don't necessarily know coming into the class. At least that has not been my experience from teaching this course. The kinds of things that I see them doing, they just don't think very carefully and very clearly about all of the components of collaborating with other people. You know, they don't think about how are we going to contact one another, and what happens if someone doesn't contact us, and what happens if someone doesn't do their work, and when are we going to meet, and how are we going to meet, and how are we going to do our collaborative writing together, what platform are we going to use, and so on and so forth. So anyway, hopefully it'll be a valuable study, even if I find out that, you know, it's just a website and how-to videos that people want to use, that, you know, Virginia Tech can be the pioneer of the technical online writing lab. Who knows? Maybe that's enough. Maybe that's all the world needs. All right. Till then, adios.